All right, now there's this, which is really the one that everyone at this table is talking about this morning. Former president turned Bible salesman?
All Americans need a Bible in their home, and I have many. It's my favorite book. I'm proud to endorse and encourage you to get this Bible. We must make America pray again.
Make America pray again. After launching sneaker and cologne lines last month, the former president, so he is selling, get this, the God Bless the USA Bible. That's in partnership with country singer Lee Greenwood. He takes the stage to Greenwood's music. It's only $59.99, and just for that, you get a copy of the Constitution, a copy of the Bill of Rights, a copy of the Pledge of Allegiance, and the Declaration of Independence, as well as the Bible, I guess. Just a reminder, this is the man who once said this.
2 Corinthians 3:17, that's the whole ball game. Where the Spirit of the Lord, right? Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty.
Jonah, can you please remind me what is 2 Corinthians?
Well, actually, my favorite example of this, when he was asked what his favorite Bible verse was, he was like, well, first of all, there's so many. I couldn't pick just one.
So many
and
Bible
then he
verses.
settled on an eye for an eye. Which I just thought was so great. Look, I mean, in fairness, I think a lot of people who really passionately dislike Trump are praying again too, given the state of things. But no, this is the life we've chosen. Someone made a bad wish with a monkey paw a while ago, and this is the life we have now.
It is remarkable glimpse of the path we could have been on. That if the Electoral College had bounced slightly differently in 2016, Donald Trump would have been a TV pitchman for the past decade, and he would be selling reversible mortgages, dietary supplements. It is a reminder, however, of how fraudulent all the claims about his wealth are. These are not the actions of very wealthy people. Very wealthy people are living on the interest upon the interest of their municipal bonds. They do not need to go on TV and sell Bibles to credulous supporters. By the way, the Bible, of course, is available in almost every translation you could want for free online. You can read it every day for nothing.
Ashley, do you want to weigh in here?
Not particularly, but I will. I guess, to take a slightly more serious tone on this is a preview, again, of how Trump sees the way he wants to rule the world, and through an authoritative theology, which is one way, which is, as I'm a Christian, but, the Bible is the root in which we are going to govern this country, even though this country was founded on the separation of church and state. And so it is funny, and yet it's not, because it is a tell that if he wins in November and becomes president, he could not just say, I'm selling Bibles, but I'm mandating that in our schools, everyone has a Bible. In these institutions, everyone has a Bible. And that's not what America's about. There are people from all different faiths, and that's the beauty of this patchwork cloth that we have that Donald Trump doesn't really seem to appreciate in this.
Well, I mean, and Jonah, pulling together, to Ashley's excellent point, the founding documents of the country into the separation of church and state was a founding ideal for a country that was breaking away from Britain, and those documents that the founders wrote reflected that. To kind of put them together and then hawk it
Yeah, but it's a great value in a bundle, and they're all public domain now, so they can get them really cheap for printing purposes. But no, look, I don't think at all, truly, that Donald Trump wants to impose a theocracy. I think there are a bunch of people in his orbit who do, right? There are people who, Donald Trump, we talked about going to communion, he says, and when they give me my little cracker. This is a guy who's not religiously literate in the slightest. But the people who are most invested in him, surrounding him, who want to fill the federal bureaucracy, they actually take this theocracy stuff very seriously. And I do think that this mixing, it really is an interesting mix of God and mammon, isn't it? That we're seeing. And I think, to your point, I think that's where the real threat is, if you're concerned about that kind of thing.
Well, he is engaged in one scam after another. And I think we're on these two clocks. One is the election clock, and one is the bankruptcy clock. I guess it's the third clock, which is the criminal clock. That probably won't have time to operate before the election. But the bankruptcy clock does. And I think when the most serious thing he's engaged in is this effort to loft the shares of his media company, Truth Social.
I was going to say, current bankruptcy, but yes, that was the other thing that unfolded yesterday.
It smells terrible. It smells terrible. I personally, I don't
He's got
know.
a cologne now, though, so like it could.
Right, but
He
the-
had cologne. I had his cologne when I went and covered his announcement at Trump Tower in
But I think-
2015.
I think
so it's a
with-
long-standing thing.
The others are funny. I think that with the media company, I think we're going to find it's not just credulous meme stock buyers. I think we're going to find much more serious SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission stuff going on to drive the price in this way. And so there may be yet another round of investigations from this latest attempt for him to make some serious money to recoup the fortune he inherited from his father and then dissipated.
You know, I think one thing that two things I bet Donald Trump will say if the Bible sales don't go, why aren't people buying it? You know, they asked me what to put in the Bible. That will be one claim that he makes. And I helped write this thing. Like, that's the kind of fraudulent behavior that this exhibits to me. And he's just willing to say whatever he can to seem like he's the center of the story, even when we know it's so extreme.
On the Truth Social thing, I mean, I do think for a lot of regular people, this idea that you could just push a button and generate this vast amount of wealth kind of overnight for something that, most people are not familiar with, I do think maybe cuts in an interesting way. I did want to bring these into the conversation. Donald Trump did seem to have a late night last night. We're kind of wondering when he actually got any sleep. The former president posted a series of new attacks on his platform, Truth Social, in the middle of the night. He attacked NBC after the network dropped former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel as a paid political analyst. He wrote at 12:30 a.m. that NBC is filled with degenerates and that McDaniel, the niece of Senator Mitt Romney, should have changed her name back to Romney when she signed with NBC. And then around 2 a.m., Trump came after RFK Jr., which I think is very interesting politically. RFK Jr. announced his vice presidential pick for his independent presidential bid yesterday. So Trump called Kennedy the most radical left Democrat in the race. So I want to show you a couple of things here that we saw play out yesterday. One was, I am very interested, and I want to dig into this idea that Trump apparently is threatened by RFK Jr. Here was Shanahan, his VP pick, very wealthy woman, which I think is an important thing to remember here, on stage at the RFK Jr. rally yesterday. Watch.
Conditions like autism used to be 1 in 10,000. Now here in the state of California, it is 1 in 22. 1 in 22 children affected. Allergies, obesity, anxiety, depression, our children are not well. Our people are not well, and our country will not be well for very much longer if we don't heed this desperate call for attention. There is only one candidate I have met for president who takes the chronic disease epidemic seriously. It is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I will be his ally in making our nation healthy again.
I will be his ally in making our nation healthy again. I would just like to remind everyone what that looks like for RFK Jr., who I spoke to earlier this year. Watch our interview. You have gained notoriety for your skepticism about vaccines. And over the summer in an interview, you said, quote, "There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective." Do you still believe that?
I never said that.
So stop me. We have the clip. Please play the clip.
Can you name any vaccines that you think are good?
I think some of the live virus vaccines are probably averting more problems than they're causing. There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective.
So you did say it. He did say it. He did say it. RFK Jr. did say there is no vaccine that is safe and effective. Jonah Goldberg, Trump clearly now is seeing some sort of threat here from RFK Jr. Democrats have already recognized he could be a threat to President Biden. What do you see in the politics of all of this, in RFK's bid, and what danger or not that poses to the country?
Yeah, look, it's given how, 5, max 7 states are going to decide this election, and the margins are so tight, and we're so tight in 2020, so tight in 2016, in terms of the Electoral College at least, it's very hard to game out, right? In 2020, only 2% of the vote went to third parties. Kennedy could lose his support by half, and it would still be a major multiple of that. So that and the anti-vax stuff, it cuts across parts of the Biden coalition and the Trump coalition in ways that make it just very hard to predict, but it's going to matter.